Hello and welcome back to this House of Walls. As always, I am sitting here with a very nice cup of coffee, and today I am sitting in front of our big bookcase in our schoolroom. This is what used to be a closet. Our schoolroom is technically like a fourth bedroom, but it has access to our backyard, so I would never put kids in here. So we decided to take the closet doors off and put in, of course, an IKEA bookshelf, and it's a great resource bookcase for anything that we need. I have picture books, our Harry Potter illustrated books, all kinds of history, and below that science, more picture books, and just kind of reference and storybooks, everything like that. So it's a great place to sit here and talk about how we incorporate reading and books into our homeschool. All right, so for just a little bit of a backstory, this is our third year homeschooling. We started because of the pandemic and honestly haven't looked back. So our first year homeschooling, I did have a kindergartner and a fourth grader. So my kindergartner was very much so working on phonics, sight words, sound, all of that, with beginner reader books like the Bob books and things like that. We have never had to use any other formal reading curriculum with him. That was enough for him to become a very fluent reader now. My fourth grader was, of course, a very fluent reader. In public school, he was always either first or second in his class with his reading levels. And so when he came home to school, I had to figure out how to continue that. So the first year was very much trial and error, where I thought, we should be doing book reports. We should be doing big, huge book studies. We should be doing all these things that they're doing in public school. And then I had an inclination of, I didn't like that at school. That's honestly what turned me off from reading books until I was in my 20s. And then even more so to really get into books 2 years ago, and now it's one of my go-to favorite things to do is pick up a good book. So I thought there's got to be some other way. So I found the Read Aloud Family, and this is written by Sarah Mackenzie, who is the founder of Read Aloud Revival. And this is all about incorporating read alouds with family time, and how to pick great fantastic books that your kids will love and to not kill the love of reading. So I highly recommend picking this up. I did at first listen to this on audio and then went, oh, I need to have this. So then I bought it. It is not secular, but it's simple enough to skim past the not secular portions of this book and really take so much of this and how to keep reading going in your family. So for our family, we definitely incorporate reading, obviously. We do not incorporate things like book reports. We do not do huge book studies. I might go on and print off something from like Teachers Pay Teachers to just kind of go with a book that they're reading. It's not something that I even check often. We do a lot of just talking about the books that my kids are reading. And I find that that is really all that we need when we're reading books. We don't need anything else. This way they can not get so tired of reading and having to do studying about the book. And so if there's something that we need to put the book down and talk about, we can do it right then and there. We can talk about what's going on in the book, about a meaning, that we might need to make a connection with, anything like that. And then we get to move on and continue with the rest of the book. So at the beginning of the year, I went through this library here, and then I do have a bookcase outside of this schoolroom to hold more kind of chapter books and things like that. So I went through for my 2nd grader and for my 6th grader and picked books to put on their bookshelves. If you watched any of my curriculum videos, I think it is shown there, so I'll link them above, that I just pull a stack of books and I put them next to all their curriculum, and when they are done with a book, they can go and pick books from there. It's not normally books that they would go pick up on their own. A lot of times on their own, they'll pick up things like Dog Man and Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Big Nate and things like that, which are fantastic. Any book that my kid wants to pick up and read, go for it. With school, I want them just a little bit more tweaked, picking up books that they would not normally go and pick up off of a bookshelf. So this is the stack that I have for my 2nd grader. We have gone through some of these. He has books like the Mercy Watson series by Kate DiCamillo. He thinks that this is just funny and hilarious. And then he is my animal lover. So we have little beginner chapter books like this. They're not great literary novels or anything like that, but it does have his interest, and it is a beginner chapter book so that he can start figuring that out. We also have things like the Frog and Toad books. I love these books. He's kind of outgrowing them a little bit, so I'm hoping that we can finish all of them before the end of the year, before we move on to then 3rd grade books. So that is just how we incorporate books with my 2nd grader. He does read them aloud to me during school time, so that way we can correct, and if he doesn't know a word yet, then we can sit and sound it out or figure out what the word is. Then for my 6th grader, again, I went through our books at the beginning of the year and picked out some good books for him to be reading this year that, again, he would not normally pick up on his own. So this is his stack of books. So we have a whole variety. He did read a couple of The Last Kids on Earth. Again, not huge literary fiction book. It is what it is. But then we also have books like The Giver. We have not gotten to this yet this year, and I think I'm going to read it with him. Well, kind of beside him, that we can kind of both go through it at the same time, because I remember reading this and loving it, and I've never picked it up since. So I'm interested to read it again as an adult and see what my 6th grader thinks about it. We also have books like A Long Walk to Water and The Hatchet. And this is one of those books, I read this, I think in 5th grade, and I did public school all the way through, and I hated it. So I'm interested to see what my son thinks of the book, and I might reread it as well. It's been interesting. Some of our read alouds that we do are books that I did not like in school, and I read them again, and I'm not doing big huge book studies or book reports or anything, and I love the books, and we get such a kick out of them, and they tend to be some of our favorite books. So I'm interested to see what he thinks about The Hatchet. This is one that I thought was kind of cool. This is Explorer Academy. I think that this is the first in 7 series where kids are traveling around each continent, and they have different adventures and clues. So there's some history and geography, probably some logic, all involved in these books. So that is what I have for my 6th grader. Right there. And again, when he finishes a book, he can just go and pick out what sounds good to him. I don't have it with me right now because it is actually in his room. He was reading it yesterday. Right now he is reading The Phantom Toll Booth. That is one I think I was supposed to read and I never actually truly did. And he's actually really enjoying it, so I love that. One last thing to just add for my 6th grader is his books, he reads by himself. He does have a reading journal that sometimes I will print out a little bit of a short and sweet book study to go with it. A lot of times it's just kind of multiple question. There might be a little bit of like vocabulary if some of the words in the books are a little bit difficult. But again, I don't check it. It's not a part of his main curriculum. It's just kind of a way for him to help make connections with the books that he's reading. Next are books that we read aloud. These are some of our favorites. So this is what we have read aloud so far this year. So we have things like The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. We loved it. It was fabulous. The Borrowers, it was okay, but we did it as read aloud and we're able to talk about different things and histories and things like that. Beautiful, beautiful series, The Wild Robot. So last year we did the first one, so this year we did The Wild Robot Escapes. I do believe that there is a 3rd one coming out possibly later this year, and we will definitely be picking that up. So sweet, so moving, and definitely one that I get choked up reading as I am trying to read it aloud to my kids. For Christmas, we did The Christmas Pig by J.K. Rowling. It was cute, sweet. We were able to talk about a bunch of things like bullying and different blends of families and things like that. Millie, you are going to push all those books off. And then we just finished Mr. Popper's Penguins. Great little cute book. Yeah, it was cute. And then when we are done reading a book as a read aloud, I go onto our bookshelf, the one in the hallway has all of our chapter books, and I pull off a couple of books and I bring them to my kids and I read the synopsis and we kind of vote on what we want to read. So the books that I pulled off for this read aloud was The Islands of the Blue Dolphins, Bridge to Terabithia, and the BFG. So we all voted on it along with my husband, and so that was a great way to incorporate him into our homeschooling. And so we are all now reading the BFG. So sweet and funny to start. We are not very far in. Honestly, it's been kind of put on the back burner some days this week. So hopefully this weekend we can read a nice little chunk of it and continue on with this story. With our read alouds, such as the BFG, we don't set any kind of, we have to have the book read by such and such date. We just kind of pick it up and read. Some books, it has worked out, like The Tale of Despero, that I read 2 chapters. And that tends to be enough, and then we put it down and move on with whatever. The BFG, some of it I've read 2 chapters, there was one where it was a longer chapter, so I just read 1 chapter, and that's it. And it's great because then we can talk about what happened, and we're liking to try to make the connections of what the BFG is actually saying, because he has a hard time putting words out of his mouth, like me. So it's cute to stop and talk about what the BFG is actually trying to say. So that is how we incorporate reading and hopefully the love of reading into our homeschool. This way has opened my kids up to a bunch of different books. It has reintroduced me to a bunch of books that I thought that I didn't like when I was a kid. Now my kids like the books because we haven't overdone it with book studies and book reports. So we just let the book be what it is and let them appreciate it. On that note, let me know if you have any questions about how we have taught reading or anything like that into our homeschool. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below. I am having so much fun with this channel to incorporate homeschooling and books and kind of everything in between. And so I can't wait to continue on with all of the things for this channel.